Click the bell icon to get latest videos from Ekeeda.
Hello friends, we'll be discussing certain details about sales book. Just like we have understood how to prepare a purchase book, we'll be going through the sales book again. We'll be understanding how it is prepared, what is the pro forma, and how we'll solve it with an illustration mentioned down in the sheets. Let's go ahead and figure that out. So when we speak about sales book, we ideally know that it is similar to the purchase book. When we spoke about purchase book in the earlier video, we spoke about how a purchase book records only credit transactions. Similar on that lines, we have sales book which records only credit sales. So if you have any details about any transactions which refers to credit sales being made to the vendors or probably to the buyers, then these transactions are recorded in the sales book. We have mentioned down certain details here. Let's go through them and you'll have better clarity on it. As mentioned here, it is used for recording sales which are done on credit. That means anywhere where the cash is not referred or where the cash is not mentioned, such transactions are recorded in this specific book. We'll have certain details. We'll have the specific details of pro forma which has been listed down there. Let's go ahead and figure out what do we have in the pro forma. It will be in terms of any specific purchase book itself. There will be certain changes that we'll note down in the next sheet. Again, this specific book will have 5 columns in it. That means date, particular or description, the amount, the invoice number, and LF. These are the 5 columns that will be arranged in the specific sheet that we'll be seeing in the next part itself. However, just to give you the details about how this specific columns will look, it will have a specific pro forma that will be showing up in the next sheet. Hence, we have only 5 columns in the sales book. There are other names for this specific sales book which has been jotted down here. Let's highlight them. They are known as sales journal, sales day book, or specifically sales book itself. So when we talk about sales book, it can be either named as either of these things. So whenever the question says you have to prepare a day book or you have to prepare a sales journal or you have to prepare a sales book itself, this is what you need to prepare. Let's go on to the pro forma, after which we'll be doing one illustration for your understanding. So now that you can figure out the sales pro forma has been mentioned down here, that's the format of how a specific sales book will see. Let's go ahead and figure out what those columns or how those columns are supposed to be arranged. As we know that there are 5 columns here, we'll be mentioning these down in the specific format itself. Now the first 2 columns refers to date and particulars. Date will always have the year in it. That means whenever you have to start with a sum which refers to any kind of book, that means sales book, purchase book, etc., you have to mention the year first. That refers to the transactions that you're dealing with in the sum. So if the question says that this is for the year 2018, you will mention down 2018 there. If the question says 2019, you'll mention down 2019 there. And after that, you'll follow the chronological order of all the transactions. Make sure all these transactions are recorded into the chronological order itself. That means the first date will come first, and after that following on second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on. So that's how you prepare the first 2 columns. The second column refers to the particulars. That means the details of the specific buyer that will be written down in the specific column. Let's go to the third and fourth column. The third and fourth column refers to invoice number and LF. Invoice number, if it is mentioned in the question, you have to note down the question mentioned or probably the invoice number mentioned in the question right in alignment of the description that you have mentioned for that specific transaction. That means if the description is mentioned and if the invoice number is included in that, hence the invoice number will be aligned specifically or horizontally to the description that has been done. Just to give you an example, see the arrow marking that I'm giving right now. So if you can see, there is one specific arrow that straight points out toward the invoice number. So if the description is here, the invoice number will be parallel to that part. So that's how you need to figure out that the invoice number will be aligned so that it will look presentable whenever you're presenting these questions into their exams. Now we'll go on to the last column, that is amount. This will consist of the total details or the total amount which is supposed to be mentioned in the sales book. Now, there are certain trade discounts or any kind of things that we give out whenever we are selling goods. So in such cases, that amount will include a net amount. So whenever you are mentioning any kind of details into the amount column, make sure that is the net amount. For example, if the sales is made of worth rupees 20,000 and out of that you have given 10% discount on it, so you have to subtract 10% discount from the net amount, and that will give you the final amount that is supposed to be done. That means net sales will be gross sales of 20,000 minus 10%, which is 2,000 of it. That means net sales will be 18,000. That will be recorded into the amount column. Make sure only final amount is recorded, no gross amounts are recorded there. So only final amount are supposed to be recorded here. Now let's go ahead with an illustration, and then we can perform this specific illustration with the format that we have just learned right now. So that means we'll be preparing a sales book for the illustration that has been mentioned in the next sheet. Let's go ahead and see what mentioned or what is there in that specific illustration. Now the sales book has to be prepared for Messrs. Chennai Company Limited for the year 2005 and for the month Jan. So all the transactions will be related for the month of Jan and the year will be 2005. So as you have seen in the previous sheet where we have mentioned that the year is 2019, thereby you will be mentioning 2005 now. Now let's go ahead with the illustrations first. On Jan 1st, sold goods to Mohan rupees 100. That means you have sold goods to a buyer named as Mohan and the worth of the good is rupees 100. Let's go on to the next illustration or the next transaction in the illustration. Jan 11, you have sold another good to a buyer named as Gopal. The amount is rupees 300. That means another sale transaction whereby there is a sales worth rupees 300 done and the person's name is Gopal. Let's figure out the last transaction mentioned here. Jan 20th, we have another sale transaction to Balu rupees 250. That means these are the three sale transactions that has been recorded down here. We have to go ahead and record these transactions into the pro forma that we have learned earlier. So we'll prepare the pro forma first and then we'll go ahead and post these transactions. So the columns are absolutely simple: date, particular, invoice number, LF and amount. These are the only columns that you have to deal with, and posting these transactions are very simple. You'll figure that out once we prepare the pro forma and then we solve this illustration. Let's go ahead and prepare the pro forma first. So now that we have prepared this specific invoice which has date, particular, invoice number, LF and amount, we'll be going ahead and preparing or we'll be posting all these transactions down here. So as you have already told that we have to mention the date here, I've highlighted the date here. Let's go ahead and underline that part so we'll have better clarity on where to mention the year first. So as you see, year 2005 has been highlighted there. We'll go ahead and record all the transactions chronologically one by one below-neath in this specific format. Let's go ahead and prepare that part. Now the first transaction has been recorded which states Jan 1st sales to Mohan rupees 100. As there is no invoice number and no LF number that has been provided into the question, you can either leave it blank or you can cross it out. But it's better that you leave it blank so that there is no error in the specifications or in the format that we are preparing. So it's better you blank it out or you probably leave it blank completely. So the first transaction has been mentioned down here. Let's go on to the next transaction and we'll figure out what more details are supposed to be mentioned in this specific format. We have mentioned down the second specific transaction as well, Jan 11, sales to Gopal rupees 300. Now we'll mention the third or the last transaction which has been mentioned in the question. So now that we have figured out that all these three transactions have been recorded in this specific sales book, we'll tally the specific sales book and this specific amount will be then transferred to the sales account ledger. So this is the journal that we have prepared for it, and then we'll be further going ahead and whatever balance or whatever total we have will be further moved to the sales account ledger. So this is how you prepare the sales book. Let's go ahead and tally that out. So now that you've prepared the total of sales book, which is amounting to rupees 650 for the month of Jan 2005, that means in the month of Jan, you have completed sales worth rupees 650 for your company or for your organization. And this specific amount will now be moved to the sales account or the ledger of the sales account. Now, this is how you prepare the sales book. This was just 3 examples. However, in any specific example, if you have a trade discount, you have to mention the amount, that is the net amount, in the final amount column. Hence, we need to make sure that any transaction that you're dealing with when it comes to sales book or purchase book, it is the net amount that is supposed to be transferred. So, I hope this makes very clear how to prepare a specific sales book, and it is simple and easy to understand. So, thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned with Ekeeda and keep subscribing to Ekeeda.